Hey, Washington Commanders fans, today, we've got two hot news stories that are going to keep you glued to the screen until the end of this video. We're going to talk about a potential signing that could change the course of our defense for the next season. That's right, head coach Dan Quinn and our front office have their eyes on a big name. Could this former Pro Bowl player, known for his ability to pressure quarterbacks, be the missing piece to transform our defense? So, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, because this discussion is going to heat up. And don't forget, in our second piece of news today, we're going to talk about a possible firing that's causing a lot of controversy. Now, before anything else, let's get straight to the point. The Washington Commanders are in full rebuild mode. You know it, I know it, we all know it. But one thing the new owner, Josh Harris, has made very clear is that the only acceptable result is winning. We have to win above all, he recently declared. And if we really want to turn this franchise back into the powerhouse it once was, we need impactful changes starting with the defense. And who better than Ngakoue, a true pass rush specialist, to help us in this mission? And speaking of defense, we know Dan Quinn is a master in this area. He lives and breathes defense. His game plan is aggressive, always looking to force turnovers and pressure the opposing quarterback. And let's face it, after a year where our defense was considered one of the worst in the league, this change in mentality is more than welcome. Quinn wants a defense that attacks, that's relentless, and makes the opposition tremble every time they face our defensive line. And here's the thing. Bleacher Report recently floated the idea that the Commanders should consider signing Ngakoue, a Washington, D.C. native and free agent, to bolster our defense. And it makes perfect sense. Ngakoue is a proven talent, a player who has shown his worth throughout his NFL career. And what makes this idea even more interesting is that Ngakoue already has a connection to our city. He grew up in Washington, D.C. and played college football in Maryland. Wouldn't he be interested in coming back home? But of course, we need to look at the numbers. Ngakoue is an 8-year veteran in the league and, except for last season, had at least 8 sacks in every season where he played at least 15 games. That's no small feat. He's always been a threat to opposing quarterbacks. Even so, we need to be honest here. In his last season with the Bears, he had just 4 sacks in 13 games, a number below his usual standard. Does he still have what it takes to shine in Dan Quinn's defensive scheme? Well, here's where it gets interesting. Ngakoue may not have had the best season last year, but that doesn't mean he can't return to being the defensive monster we know. He's a player with undeniable talent, with a natural ability to penetrate the offensive line and wreak havoc in the backfield. And, in my opinion as a fan, seeing Ngakoue in an aggressive scheme like Quinn's might be exactly what he needs to shine again. And who knows, he could lead our defense in a turnaround season. And if you're still not convinced this would be a good move, think about the impact Ngakoue could have on our defensive line as a whole. Imagine what he could do playing alongside guys like Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen. With those beasts holding down the middle, Ngakoue could have more freedom to attack the edges and pressure the quarterback. It would be a defensive line that would strike fear into any opposing offense. Now, you might be wondering, is it really worth investing in a player who had a drop in performance last season? It's a fair question, and the answer isn't that simple. It's true that Ngakoue had a dip in numbers last year, but it's also true that he was playing in a Bears defense that's not exactly known for being dominant. In a more solid scheme, with a coach like Quinn, it's very possible he could regain the form that took him to the Pro Bowl. So, my friends, the question that remains is, should we or should we not go after Ngakoue? Now here's another hot piece of news that will leave you surprised. The possibility of a surprising cut in the roster has left many fans on edge. Jamin Davis, the linebacker picked in the first round of the 2021 draft, almost got cut. We're talking about a possible move that no one expected. So, stay with us until the end of the video because we're going to analyze all the details and what this means for the future of our team. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any updates about the Commanders. Now, you must be wondering, why would someone like Jamin Davis, a promising player, be on the hot seat? Well, my friends, the landscape has changed a lot since the arrival of Dan Quinn and general manager Adam Peters. Quinn brought in a new defensive scheme focused on constant pressure on the opposing quarterback, and to reinforce this new philosophy, they brought in 2 heavy-hitting linebackers in free agency, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu. With these additions, Davis ended up losing space, and suddenly his future with the team became uncertain. We know that football is dynamic, and sometimes even the best need to adapt quickly or risk being left behind. And speaking of adaptation, what happened with Jamin Davis was precisely a struggle to fit into the style of play that Dan Quinn expects from his players. Since being selected 19th overall by the Washington Commanders, Davis was seen as a key piece for the future of the team's defense. However, it seems he hasn't been able to meet the expectations set by the new coaching staff. Word is that Quinn would prefer a linebacker who excels more in quarterback pressure and pass coverage, something that, unfortunately, Davis has not yet shown with the necessary consistency. It's tough, but football is a relentless game. Before we condemn Jamin Davis, it's worth remembering what Bleacher Report recently mentioned in an article. They listed Davis as one of the players who could be cut this season precisely because he hasn't been able to adapt to Dan Quinn's new scheme. According to the report, the Commanders and new head coach Dan Quinn are looking to quickly turn the franchise around, and if Davis can't help in that effort, he might be out. Look, folks, when a renowned outlet like Bleacher Report raises this possibility, it's because it's serious. But does Davis really deserve to be cut, or are we dealing with unrealistic expectations? Additionally, the report pointed out that the Washington Commanders are well stocked with options to generate internal pressure, with players like Darren Payne and Jonathan Allen. And let's not forget that the team added talented pass rushers like Clelin Ferrell, Dante Fowler Jr., and Dorrance Armstrong in the offseason. With such heavy competition and the demand for a more aggressive and versatile defense, it's clear that Dan Quinn is building a defensive unit to intimidate any opponent. And maybe for them, Davis doesn't fit into this vision of the game. Is he the right man for the job, or just a victim of circumstance? Come to think of it, it's also important to understand what it means to be a product of the previous regime, as suggested by Bleacher Report. Jamin Davis was selected under the direction of Ron Rivera, and as we know, new coaches often prefer their own players and styles. That's a harsh reality in the sports world. Davis might be paying the price for being seen as a piece that doesn't perfectly fit Dan Quinn's puzzle, and if the team doesn't find an interested trade partner, Davis could end up being one of the most surprising cuts this year. But is that fair? Or could his potential still be explored more efficiently? And here's the big dilemma, friends. As the team approaches the deadline to cut its active roster down to 53 players, Jamin Davis is still a Washington Commander. Maybe the investment in him was too big to give up so soon. Or maybe there's still hope that he'll adapt and become the player everyone believed he could be. After all, we're talking about a young athlete with a lot of potential to grow and learn. We can't forget that in many cases, a new environment or scheme can be the catalyst a player needs to flourish. And who knows, maybe that's the case for Davis. You see, fans, the complexity of the situation goes beyond what happens on the field. The issue with Jamin Davis is also a reflection on the direction the franchise is taking under Dan Quinn's leadership. He's clearly making bold changes and isn't afraid to make tough decisions. But could cutting Davis now end up being a premature decision? After all, the player is still on a rookie contract, and this is a valuable opportunity to develop the talent and adapt him to the system. It would be a shame to see an athlete with so much potential being discarded so early. And how does Quinn plan to use the other linebackers, especially those who were recently acquired, like Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu? Wagner is a veteran who brings a lot of experience and leadership to the team, while Louvu is known for his tenacity and versatility. Both are more experienced than Davis, but is betting on these older players sustainable in the long run? And what if Jamin Davis finds his groove on another team and becomes the star many believed he could be? These are the questions management needs to answer before making any drastic decisions. Looking back at last season, it's easy to see why some fans are divided. Davis had his ups and downs, but he also showed flashes of brilliance, especially when placed in positions where his athletic abilities could shine. He's young, explosive, and has an innate ability to read the game. Is the pressure of having to adapt to a new system in such a short time fair? Wouldn't it be wiser to give him a real chance to prove himself under Quinn's guidance? Moreover, we have to consider the impact that possibly cutting Davis would have in the locker room. Many players, especially the younger ones, see Davis as a rising leader. He's a player who has the trust of his teammates, and cutting him could send a negative message to the rest of the roster, a message that no one is safe, regardless of potential or dedication. Is that what Quinn really wants to convey during this phase of the rebuild? And we can't forget the impact on the fan base. We, the fans, form the backbone of the franchise, and our opinions often reflect the pulse of the Commanders' nation. Many of us see potential in Davis and believe he deserves another chance. His departure could not only hurt team morale, but also alienate part of the fan base that still sees him as a promising player who can make a difference if given the right time and support. But of course, we're all here to see our team win. And if Quinn believes Davis doesn't fit into the future vision, maybe it's time to trust the process. And what about you, fan? What do you think about this possible decision? Do you think we should give Jamin Davis another chance or move on and trust the plans of Coach Dan Quinn and management? Leave your opinion in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. After all, this is what football is all about: debate, passion, and above all, being a fan. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And of course, hit the bell to receive all notifications.